On Tuesday, a credible news outlet reported that nearly 100 employees at NDTV have been placed on performance improvement plans, which is basically corporate speak for you're probably going to get fired soon. Reporters, producers, camera crew, and even department heads were not spared. Now, as you will remember, NDTV was acquired by the Adani Group in December 2022 for approximately 600 crore rupees. In fact, I had covered the details of this deal in the very first episode of Daybreak back then. Ever since, we've seen wave after wave of exits from the TV news channel. Ravish Kumar left after 26 years with the channel, Srinivasan Jain, Nidhi Razdan, and later Sarah Jacob. All gone. If you've been following the news, then you're probably thinking, wait, something like this was also happening somewhere else recently. It is Washington Post, the same paper that broke the Watergate scandal, the one with democracy dies in darkness on its very masthead. In what was described as a bloodbath, the newspaper laid off hundreds of employees last Wednesday, approximately one third of the entire workforce. The whole sports section, the books desk, all have been closed. Foreign bureaus in Cairo, in Sydney, Delhi, all have been shut down. And here's the thing. The Post is owned by Jeff Bezos, who's one of the richest men in the world, worth nearly $250 billion. Now, interestingly, the layoffs came not long after the Amazon financed Melania Trump documentary was released. Amazon invested $75 million in producing and marketing it, only to see it flop. So, while both the cases, NDTV and Washington Post, may be different in many ways, the similarities at the core of both become hard to ignore. Think of the fundamentals. Gautam Adani built his empire on ports, power, and infrastructure. When government contracts are aligned, these are businesses with high operating margins. Bezos runs Amazon, which operates on 11% margins overall, but has cloud computing divisions which deliver far higher returns in the range of 30 to 40%. So, both conglomerates understand how to extract profit. Why then would they pour in money into an industry that structurally delivers lower returns? Bezos paid $250 million for the Post in 2013 when it was already losing money. The Adani Group paid more than 600 rupees for NDTV shares at a 17% premium over the open offer price. The whole deal actually played out quite strangely. Listen to my episode titled The Curious Case of Adani's Open Offer to NDTV's Public Shareholders. More recently, end of last month in fact, Adani also fully took over Indo-Asian News Service or INS, an Indian news agency. So, here is what I want to dig into today. If news was never a huge profit-making business, why do billionaires keep buying it? Welcome to Daybreak, a business podcast from the Ken. I'm your host Snigdha Sharma, and I don't chase the news cycle. Instead, every day of the week, my colleague Rachel Varghese and I will come to you with one business story that is worth understanding and worth your time. Today is Thursday, the 12th of February. Let's first establish baseline economics because this whole struggling media narrative deserves to be analyzed. Pew Research Center data says that the US newspaper industry's operating margins averaged at around 11% in 2015. Not spectacular, but respectable. But during the golden era of the 1990s, some papers hit as much as 20 to 25% margins. Now, let us compare this to tech. Google operates at 25 to 30%, Apple at 30%, and Meta at around 35%. See, newspapers were always a steady and respectable business, but never a great business if your benchmark is Silicon Valley type of returns. And here's the thing, everybody knew this. When Bezos bought the Washington Post in 2013 for $250 million, the paper had been losing money for years. Print circulation was declining, ad revenue was collapsing, and the entire industry was in free fall as big tech like Facebook and Google swallowed up the advertising pie. Do you think Adani bought NDTV to diversify into media profits? Like I told you, his empire is built on ports, power, and infrastructure. Those are 20, 30, 40% margin businesses when the contracts are right. Why would it pivot to journalism, which structurally cannot deliver those kind of returns? And add to this narratives like economic realities, adapting to the digital age, AI is disrupting the business model, search traffic is down. This is what we've been hearing day in and out about the business of news. And look, it's not entirely false. The media industry is struggling. Digital advertising is less lucrative than print used to be. AI is changing consumption patterns. But here's what does not add up. Let me present to you a critical data point. You see, newspapers can still be profitable. The New York Times, owned by the Sulzberger family, which is not a billionaire side project, reported over $2.5 billion in revenue for 2024. It was up by 6.6% year over year. Operating profit was at 11% margin. NYT's digital subscriptions are growing. The company has been adding subscribers and has been increasing revenue, while the Washington Post was hemorrhaging both. So, what did the New York Times do? Investment. The time spent on product, journalism, and subscriber experience. It treated media as its core business and not as a political hedge. Let me take another example. Bloomberg, founded by Michael Bloomberg, who made his fortune in media, is still expanding. It has over 700,000 terminal subscribers globally. So you see, the business model works if you're committed to the business. Let me give you another slightly different example. The Philadelphia Inquirer. In 2016, it was donated to a non-profit foundation, ending its billionaire ownership. After this, it saw its first year over year revenue growth in decades. It also returned to profitability, all while editorial independence stayed protected. Meanwhile, Amazon can spend eight figures on pro establishment content, but the Post, quote unquote, can't afford reporters. Here at home, the Adani Group paid over 600 crore rupees for majority control of NDTV, which was a channel that reported $45 million in revenue in 2021, with a market cap of a little over $300 million. For context, Adani Enterprises' market cap exceeds $30 billion. NDTV is barely 1% of that value. So here's the point that I'm trying to make. If this was about building a media business, you would see these conglomerates investing in expansion, talent retention, audience growth. Instead, we are seeing contraction. The business case does not exist because there is no business case. So, why did Bezos buy Washington Post? He literally said it himself, and I'm quoting, if this were a financially upside down salty snack food company, the answer would be no. Translation, this is not about return of investment. Stay tuned for more on this. Let me quote Ravish Kumar directly. After resigning from NDTV, he said, the Roys, who were the previous owners of NDTV, never asked me what topic to debate or what line to take. But how can a channel bought by a corporation whose success is linked to government contracts now criticize the government? That is what happens when ownership changes the incentives. The newsroom does not need instructions when the cost of the friction is so obvious. The Adani Group's business model depends on government infrastructure contracts. In an interview with the Financial Times, Gautam Adani himself described acquiring NDTV as a responsibility rather than a business opportunity. Responsibility to whom? The question answers itself. He also suggested that independent media should be willing to praise the government when it is doing the right thing, not just criticize it. Bezos faces similar dynamics. Amazon needs favorable antitrust rulings, cloud computing contracts, including AWS deals with the Pentagon worth billions of dollars, and regulatory leniency on labor issues. Also, let's not forget Blue Origin, its space tech arm, which competes for NASA contracts and Defense Department launches. So, when you're that exposed to the government's decisions, media ownership becomes insurance, the strategic type of insurance. Owning a media company can make someone look respectable, help them look like they're serving the public, and give them access to powerful and influential circles. Look at the timeline, for example. In the 2024 US election, Washington Post decided to withhold the planned endorsement of Democrat candidate Kamala Harris, ending the paper's long tradition of presidential endorsements altogether. Around 250,000 or 10% of its digital subscribers cancelled in protest. That is roughly $25 million worth of annual revenue lost for the paper. But the move, in hindsight, was a bet. Within months, Trump was inaugurated as the president, and Amazon's antitrust risks decreased. Blue Origin maintained its government contract pipeline, and ultimately, the $25 million subscriber loss, if you think about it, is like a rounding error for someone who is worth more than $200 billion. Antagonizing the powers that be carries a far greater cost. In India, too, the pattern is similar. The Adani Group needs port development licenses, power purchase agreements, forest land clearances, airport concessions, and so much more. Similarly, Mukesh Ambani's Network 18 also operates with a clear alignment to his broader business interests. It is all about who controls the narrative. Because when your business interests conflict with public interest, you can decide which story gets prominence and which one gets shoved under the rug. Like former Washington Post fact checker Glenn Kessler put it quite straightforwardly, Bezos is not trying to save the Post. He is trying to survive Trump. That is all for today, dear listeners. If you have any thoughts on this episode, please do write to me at podcasts@theken.com with Daybreak in the subject line. Thank you for tuning in and catch you again tomorrow.
Daybreak is produced from the newsroom of The Ken, India's first subscriber-focused business news platform. What you're listening to is just a small sample of our subscriber-only offerings, and a full subscription offers daily, long-form feature stories, newsletters, and a whole bunch of premium podcasts. To subscribe, head to theken.com and click on the red subscribe button on the top of the website. Today's episode was hosted and produced by my colleague Snigdha Sharma and edited by Rajiv CN.